the currency markets then, and the euro continues to trade higher thanks to developments in the Greece. The country's parliament has approved the second bailout package and given its nod to compete the bond structure with its private lenders. So that is something that has pushed the euro higher. The dollar index in the meanwhile has slipped on the back of euro gains. In Asia, the rupee has come off highs on back oil-related payments, but the sentiment remains bullish. Most other Asian currencies also ended higher in the day today. For more on currencies, let's go across to Mr. A.V. Rajwade. He's Forex and Treasury Risk Management Consultant, A.V. Rajwade and Company, and he joins us in Mumbai. Mr. Rajwade, hi, welcome to the show. How would you look at the Indian rupee? Because the opening was quite firm, around 49.0 kind of levels, but we seem to have given up most of those gains today.
That's true. I think, in fact, if you look back a little bit, for the last 1 week, there has been basically sideways movement in the dollar-rupee rate. And I suspect that the RBI has been sort of fairly active in the market. We will get to know the numbers only much later. But I think to look to sort of broadly speaking the future, say in March, a couple of points. Number one is that we have two major events, political, economic. Number one, of course, is the election results and how the sort of new leader of the ruling party, how he fares, particularly in the UP elections. And I think we'll know that by the 6th of March. And then, of course, we have the budget. Now, assuming that the budget has some long-delayed reform measures and that the Congress does a reasonably good showing in the UP elections, I would expect that sentiment would support the rupee. On the other hand, I think over the longer term, I think we still have major problems, as were pointed out also in the Economic Advisory Council's report, sure, which came out a couple of days back. So longer term, there are problems. There is a huge gap on the current account and trade, and the big question mark is, of course, Iran. I mean, oil prices have gone up sharply, but I think if Iran, the sort of confrontation becoming a hot war, and you can't ignore that possibility, somebody by mistake sort of sending off a missile could lead to a major conflagration in that area, and then, of course, oil prices go through the roof.
But how do you...
Capital flows have been good.
Yeah. When you look at all these factors, where do you see rupee headed then, and where do you see rupee closing this quarter?
Well, as I said, as I have told you, Manisha, earlier as well, I find it very, very difficult to predict a level. But as I said, the greater probability of reasonable stability, maybe some minor strengthening in March, particularly depending on those two events. Later on, I believe that downward pressure on the rupee likely to resume as we go into the new fiscal year.
How are you looking into the euro? Because that also seems to be impacting the Indian markets, and in the international markets, euro really seems to be catching lots of attention.
It's a good point. Yes, the euro has appreciated in the context or in the background of the Greek package. On the other hand, the dollar has appreciated. It has crossed the 80 yen level against the third major currency in the global economy, which remains the Japanese yen. So we are having contrary trends against the euro and yen. Now, a lot depends on the next 1 week, because the Greeks have 9 days' time in which to sort of put in place all the requirements internally to fulfill the conditions which have been put by the Eurozone and the IMF authorities. And I think politically it's a very, very tough nut to crack. As it is, the economy seems to be collapsing. As it is, there are a large number of demonstrations, street-level processions, protests, strikes, everything. And one is not surprised, because when your salaries are going to be cut by 20 and 30%, I think people will come on the streets. So the question is, will the Greek government retain its sort of nerve in the face of continued social unrest and demonstrations and so on? Sure. I think there is one interesting sort of point in terms of the euro rate, Manisha, which if you give me just 1 minute. When the first problem of Greece came out, somewhere in early 2010, almost 2 years back, the euro fell below 120. Now with the problem much bigger, it is still holding up beyond 133. I mean, that's why the market reactions are sort of fundamental changes, and market reactions, the correlation is poor. And that's why I avoid
that really was my question, because with all the issues that we are seeing, the euro is still holding around that 1.34 between 1.35 mark. So what are you reading into it?
Absolutely. Well, as I said, we will, I mean, one is I do see in this the sort of how much role sentiment plays in the market as distinct from fundamentals. Fundamentals would suggest that if last time it went below 120, and that was the first inkling of a crisis in Greece, as I said, almost 2 years back. Now with the crisis well in the open, and many people, many analysts believing that even if this package goes through, the problems in Greece are nowhere near getting solved.
Sure.
But now we find it is trading much higher.
It clearly is about how markets are reacting to various things. Thank you so much, Mr. Rajwade, for taking time out for us. So euro on the one side is holding firm. The concerns from eurozone, of course, far from over. But rupee is something to keep an eye on ahead of elections and budget.